Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kalipana Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padarabhendra Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. All right. My respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they're honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of, because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis, and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. And just right at this point, let us just remind ourselves, or those of us here in the temple and all those, some hundreds of you in different parts of the world, to please pray for the well-being of His Holiness Bhakti Churu Swami Maharaj. His situation has become very challenging in the last, several hours or half of a day like that. So please let us pray to the Lord to be merciful. And we would so much love to have His association further here in this world. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Chatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So now Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, didn't notice that. All right. Excuse me. Right. So now we are going to focus this evening on chapter 10. On Friday evening, we finished chapter 9. So now we go into chapter 10, techniques of hearing and remembering. And it's a rather unusual chapter in that there are only 4 rules or angas. They're called angas also. Anga meaning a part or literally a limb of the process of sadhana bhakti, Vaidya sadhana bhakti, or sadhana bhakti in general. There's only 4 which are discussed in this chapter, which is quite unusual. Normally we get, I don't know, 10 or 15 or something like that. Anyway, so that's all right. We will, they're discussed quite extensively by Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada. So let us look into them. If there is extra time at the end, then we will just carry on to the next chapter, chapter 11. So there's no loss. All right, so now there's some points here to bear in mind. Yes, by way of introduction, you could say, really, in paragraph number 1, the point is made that Krishna consciousness begins with hearing, Shravana. We know Prahlad Maharaj has described the 9 devotional processes, and the first is Shravanam, or hearing. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanavedanam. So first is hearing. If you don't hear about something, you cannot chant about it. And if you don't hear about something, and you could say and chant, because when you chant, you hear also, but particularly hearing is the most important also in this case. If you don't hear about something, you can't remember it. It's obviously just, you could say, physically impossible to remember something if you've not heard about it. And of course, in this case, we're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the whole process of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness begins with hearing, and therefore in the first paragraph, Prabhupada makes the point that everyone should be given the opportunity to hear about Krishna. This is really, it's not just an important activity, one of the important activities. It's practically the most important activity, because this is the movement of Lord Chaitanya for spreading Krishna consciousness, giving people Krishna consciousness, and ultimately giving the world Krishna consciousness. But as we've just been saying, without hearing, how is anyone going to remember something, or in other words, be conscious of that thing? What is the possibility of being conscious of something if you never heard about it? You have no experience, no awareness. So it's like that. So for this movement then, even though there are many activities which we perform, and they're all very important, but of all the activities that we're doing, really, first of all, we have to hear, and in this way become Krishna conscious, and then we have to help other people to hear, and in that way, they, and ultimately the whole world, can become Krishna conscious. That's Lord Chaitanya's movement. So therefore, everyone, we have to make the effort and rack our brains how to facilitate all the people to hear about Krishna and become involved in this way in Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada says here in this first paragraph, right at the end, it cleanses the heart of the contaminated soul so that he becomes quickly qualified to enter into devotional service and understand Krishna consciousness. Of course, this is in reference to non-devotees becoming Krishna conscious, but it's also for us. It cleanses our hearts so that we can become qualified to progress in Krishna consciousness and ultimately to go back to Godhead. So now, devotees, as we go through this section here, number 43 about hearing, we will notice that, well, particularly 3 ways of hearing or types of hearing of 3 different types of things to do with Krishna. That sort of hearing is discussed in the section. They're specific forms or types or subjects of hearing which are focused on, and as we'll see as we go through the section, but let me just tell you in advance so you can note them down if you want. Number 1 is, it's called Nam Shravan, or Nama Shravana in Sanskrit, hearing the Nam, the holy name or holy names of the Lord. And the hearing of the name or the names, mantras of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that form of hearing is going to be discussed, as we'll see, we'll point it out, but in the second paragraph actually. It's specifically focusing on that type of hearing, Nam Shravana. Then the second type is Charitra Shravana. Charitra Shravana, which means hearing about the pastimes of the Lord specifically. And this we'll see as we go on in the section. The verse there is, the verse which is focusing on that is in paragraph 3. In fact, the whole of paragraph 3 is focusing on hearing about the pastimes, charitra or charita shravana. And then there's number 3, gunadi shravana, which means, guna means qualities and adi means beginning with. So gunadi shravana basically means hearing about the pastimes, the qualities. Guna means qualities. Gunadi, beginning with the qualities. So hearing about the qualities of Krishna and then other things also. And that we find in, what is it now? This we find, the qualities. I think it's the last paragraph. Am I right? Right. Yes, it's the last paragraph. There's mention of verses quoted on that subject. Gunadi Shravana, hearing about the qualities, etc. of Krishna. All right, so we said that the second paragraph is dealing with Nama Shravana, the stress. Well, Prabhupada says, in the Garuda Purana, the stress on hearing is expressed very nicely. The state, and then Prabhupada quotes, the state of conditioned life in the material world is just like that of a man lying unconscious, having been bitten by a snake. This is because Both such unconscious states can be ended by the sound of a mantra, or in other words, the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and Prabhupada makes the point, it's interesting explanation. When a person is bitten by a snake, and we sincerely hope that none of you and none of us, including me, get bitten by snakes, or even just one in the future. But when a person is bitten by a snake, as Prabhupada explains in this paragraph, they don't just drop dead. Yeah, just like when people are shot, generally they don't just drop dead. In the movies, and we sincerely hope you don't watch them, but surely you must have in the past, and you would have seen someone got shot and they just dropped dead and that was it. They were gone. It's very rare. Oh, well, you would probably know. My father, who was in the Second World War, he said they normally die from loss of blood. Yeah. So anyway, that's by the way. But as far as snake bites go, generally a person first goes into a state of unconsciousness, and then after a while they die. So, so that's in regards to being bitten by a snake. And in regards to people who are not Krishna conscious, then they're also in a state of unconsciousness. Krishna unconsciousness. You've heard of Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna unconsciousness. It means you're just not conscious of Krishna. You may be conscious of so many things, but you're just not conscious of Krishna. Yeah. So in that sense, in the spiritual sense, those people are unconscious. Just like the people who are bitten by a snake, they go into a physically unconscious condition. This is how Prabhupada is explaining it here. So, yeah, because they're ignorant of them, who they are, they're ignorant of Krishna and all these things. They're just really ignorant. So therefore, materialistic life means that one is bitten by the snake of Maya, illusion, and is therefore in a type of comatose state, almost dead, on the edge, right on the edge. So now the thing is, Prabhupada's explanation, Srila Rupa Goswami's explanation, that there is a practice in regards to people who have been bitten by snakes, that they can be revived by mantra. It is possible to revive people who have been bitten by snakes and who have already gone unconscious. That's the whole point. They've already gone unconscious, but they can be revived to a normal living condition by mantra. Similarly, the people who are now asleep or practically dead, unconscious, due to Maya, the materialistic state of consciousness, Krishna unconsciousness, they can be brought back to the real natural state of consciousness and a natural way of life by mantra. And of course, we can guess which mantra would be the best in that regard, without a doubt. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes. So Prabhupada says in regards to the snake biting, there are expert chanters of these mantras who can perform this feat. Similarly, if we hear the mantra particularly from the lips of the pure devotee, who's the expert chanter of the Hare Krishna mantra, then our Krishna consciousness can be revived and we'll be brought back to our real state of living. Right, so that's all discussed in the second paragraph. In the third paragraph, the focus is, as we see there, the importance of hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is stated by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, 4th canto, chapter 29, verses 39 and 14. My dear king, one should stay at a place where the great acharyas speak about the transcendental activities of the Lord, and one should give oral reception to the nectarian river flowing from the moon-like faces of such great personalities. If someone eagerly continues to hear such transcendental sounds, then certainly he will become freed from all material hunger, thirst, fear, and lamentation, as well as all illusions of material existence. So that's charita shravana, hearing about the pastimes. Now, hearing about the qualities, etc., that's discussed a bit further down, right at the end of the 5th paragraph. We go on now into the 4th paragraph. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended this process of hearing as a means of self-realization in the present age of Kali. So basically, Prabhupada explains here how it's difficult to follow all the different rules and regulations and learn all the mantras and tantras and yantras. Sure. And the intricacies of Krishna consciousness. We already mentioned that the other day, which chapter was it? I forget exactly, but the subject came up right at the beginning of one of the chapters of how Rupa Goswami, or rather Srila Sanatan Goswami, has compiled Hari Bhakti Vilas, which has just got so many, I don't know how many, but at least hundreds of rules, do's and do nots. But Srila Rupa Goswami has extracted the main ones, the main 64 rules, or as we said a little earlier this evening, angas. Anga. They're not simply, I mean, some of them, they look just like rules, do this, don't do that. But they're also referred to as angas, or different limbs or parts of the overall process of devotional service. So anyway, here the point is made that in this age it's very difficult to really follow nicely all the rules and regulations and study all the things that need to be studied. Oh my gosh, it is just really a big job. And in this life, in the world, in this Kali Yuga here, first of all, we don't have much time. And then there's so many other things we have to do. As the Bhagavatam says, in this iron age of Kali, men are but short-lived. They're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. That's Kali Yuga, isn't it? Sure, it's amazing. It's like that. So what to do? What will really work and really help us in this Kali Yuga? Well, as Prabhupada says, if one gives oral reception to the sound vibrated by great devotees and acharyas, that alone, this is the 4th paragraph, by the way, that alone will give him relief from all material contamination. Therefore, it's the recommendation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that one should simply hear from authorities who are actually devotees of the Lord. This is the first step. Well, we already talked about that. And Prabhupada says, well, don't hear from professional people or people, like we read earlier in the beginning of these rules. People who just try to speak in colorful ways just to impress people or maybe gain followers. People who have some agenda other than simply imparting the message of Krishna consciousness, or even ultimately you could say some agenda other than simply presenting the message of Prabhupada, like that. So we shouldn't hear from those people with other ideas, but Prabhupada concludes the paragraph. If we hear from those who are actually self-realized, then the nectarian rivers, like those which are flowing on the moon planet, will flow into our ears. This is the metaphor used in the above verse. Yes, the nectarian rivers of Krishna Katha of different sorts, chanting of the names, the pastimes, the qualities, the forms, they're all forms of Krishna Katha. Just like Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan says about what is referred to in Bhagavad Gita as Ananya Bhakti. Ananya. Anya means other, and Ananya means no other. It's just a way of saying Ananya Bhakti, pure Bhakti, without the presence of anything else. He says that pure Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, it's so amazing, so powerful. He says it builds up as the devotee practices. It builds up until it becomes, seeing the example here was given of a nectarian river, it builds up until it becomes like the Ganges, which just flows down and through the country to the ocean. And whatever gets in its way is just swept away. That's all. So similarly, this nectarian river of Krishna Katha, it flows down from the great devotees, from Shastra, from Srila Prabhupada like this, and it just sweeps away all the obstacles and undesirable things which sometimes block our path or just interfere with things, as I'm sure we've all had some experience. So then in the 5th paragraph, the last paragraph here, Prabhupada makes the point, it's an interesting point. A materialistic person cannot give up his material hankerings, or can give up his material hankerings only by becoming situated in Krishna consciousness. Now, this is a very famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. What's the verse number? the higher taste, 56 is it? Anyway, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he's fixed in consciousness. So anyway, the point has been made that we have to hear this nectar like a river coming from the mouths of the great devotees. And further explained here that if we do that, then we will get the higher taste, and all the lower taste things that we're attached to after many lifetimes in this material world, they all get swept away. It's all a river of nectar, Bhagavad Gita. And then as far as the point we made about hearing about the qualities, etc., of the Lord, Gunadi Shravana, then the particular verse is right at the end of that last chapter there, 12:3-15. A person who desires unalloyed devotional service to Lord Krishna, who is praised by transcendental sound vibrations, should always hear about his glorification and transcendental qualities. This will surely kill all kinds of inauspiciousness in the heart. So there you go. That verse mentions the qualities, but it also mentions his glorification. So it's guna adi. Yeah. And, sometimes you hear about the forms of the Lord. So that's also included under guna adi. All sorts of things to do with the Lord, beginning with his qualities. Okay. So then we go on to anga or rule number 44, and it's an important one, expecting the Lord's mercy. Here is quoted a very famous verse, actually, from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-8. Tatenu kampam susamikshmano unjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapobir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadaya bhag. And there's a translation there right at the beginning there. My dear Lord, any person who's constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. Yeah. So, anyway, much of our life, or much of people's lives in this world, is spent suffering the results of sinful reactions. But the thing is, as this verse is implying at least, devotional service is so practical that it can transform our suffering of sinful reactions into an opportunity for progress in devotional service. What does it require? It requires really only the right attitude. And this is the right attitude here. Because this verse is talking about suffering the reactions of our past misdeeds. enjoying the reactions of our past good deeds, few and far between as they probably are. Anyway, it comes under the same heading, but here we're talking particularly about expecting the Lord's mercy in difficulty. So that as far as the right attitude is concerned, this verse is basically expressing it, and there are two main aspects which are well worth noting down for the next time you experience some suffering because of some past sinful activity, or for whatever reason, but some suffering comes on our small and quite vulnerable heads. So there are two things. One is to accept the reactions that we're getting as the Lord's mercy. And the other is to repeatedly offer obeisances within our minds. Offer obeisances, pray, take shelter, and try to glorify, be very humble. I mean, there's sort of subdivisions under each of these two, but these are the two main ones. Take the reactions as the Lord's mercy and offer obeisances and prayer within the mind, within the heart. And the next paragraph is really important. In fact, I'd say it's just super important, because this verse, as it appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it doesn't have, it's got a purport. It's basically a nice purport. But here Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion really gives, I would say, an extensive and very, clear purport to this verse and the whole idea of expecting the Lord's mercy when we're faced with difficulty because of our previous misdeeds. So Prabhupada says, this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. How's that? You can't get more to the point than that. You just can't. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences, because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he's not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. When such impediments arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. That's another to the point statement. That is the only solace. If the devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he's going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is daya bak. Daya bak refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who's prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. That's pretty good. That's really quite amazing. Yes, daya bak. Well, Prabhupada puts it very nicely. A son becomes the lawful inheritor. No one can say, I mean, at least by normal standards, no one can say, no, he can't inherit. If he's the son, he inherits. And it's actually Srila Sridhar Swami, great Bhagavatam commentator from long ago. The way he puts it is, he raises the question, what qualification does a son need to have in order to collect his inheritance of the father's property? What qualification? Some university degree or whatever. And he says, no, the only qualification required is to be alive. If he's not alive, he can't collect his inheritance. If he's alive, then whatever his state is otherwise, he collects the inheritance. That's it. So similarly, if we simply stay alive in Krishna consciousness, so to speak, means practicing, just carrying on practicing, even though there's ups and downs. But if we simply carry on, tolerating the difficulties, praying to the Lord, expecting his mercy, then the kingdom of God becomes our rightful inheritance. One fine morning, you will wake up and you'll no longer be in Chatsworth. You will be in Goloka Vrindavan. Haribol. So let's go on to number 45, Remembrance. As you can see, it's just a relatively short presentation there. Oh, look, I got a special question. Okay, all right. In fact, I think I've got two. So here, we want you, if you're doing the Bhakti Shastri, to note some points from what I'm going to read. This is from a letter of Srila Prabhupada's. And you should note this down because you're going to have to quote different things in the exam. So Prabhupada says to the devotee, you mentioned that your pathway has become filled with stumbling blocks, but there are no stumbling blocks. I can kick out all those stumbling blocks immediately, provided you accept my guidance. With one stroke of my kick, I can kick out all stumbling blocks. Wow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So what does the point is, what does Prabhupada say about all these stumbling blocks? There are no stumbling blocks. He can, just with one kick, he can kick them out. That's for those of you who are doing Bhakti Shastri. Let's go on to Remembrance then. And here, there are two verses. Well, first of all, let us just note a point, that the next one after Remembrance is meditation. And remembrance and meditation are, in one sense, they're just sort of basically the same thing. Maybe meditation is just a deeper form of remembrance, but they are, at the very least, very intimately connected. Yeah, so that's one point to note. So, yeah. So there are two verses quoted. First one says, is that simply by remembering the Lord, you become eligible for all kinds of auspiciousness. Therefore, let us remember the Lord. Then, let us remember him, offer our obeisances to him, because if we remember him, either at the time of death or just during our lives, we become freed from sinful reactions. Yeah, there's a potency to that remembrance. And devotees, believe it or not, I've got two questions, Haribol, on this for the Bhakti Shastri. So you're going to be asked about this verse. Note it down. Adi Leela Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 14, verse 1. If you memorize that verse, you'll get this question right in the exam. But let me just give you the translation. Things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. So just note down, you devotees doing Bhakti Shastri. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 14, verse 1. And here's another question. Wow, look at this. And this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.3.12, purport. 5.3.12. The real success in life is ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the holy name, attributes, activities, and form of the Lord at the time of death. Although we may be engaged in the Lord's devotional service in the temple, material conditions are so tough and inevitable that we may forget the Lord at the time of death due to a diseased condition or mental derangement. Therefore, we should pray to the Lord to be able to remember his lotus feet without fail at the time of death when we're in such a precarious condition. Okay. So the real success in life is ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the Lord, the holy name, attributes, activities, form of the Lord at the time of death. Bhagavatam 5.3.12. So let's go on to meditation. And for Srila Rupa Goswami, just by way of an introduction, let me inform you. Rupa Goswami has divided this section, or divided meditation, rather, I should say. There are 4 types of meditations, and of course, they are mentioned here. First is Rupa Dhyanam. Dhyana means to meditate. Rupa Dhyanam, to meditate on Krishna's form. Guna Dhyanam, meditation on Krishna's qualities. Krida Dhyanam, meditation on Krishna's activities. And Seva Dhyanam, meditation on devotional service to Krishna. And all of these, the idea is, they involve deeper concentration, contemplation, deeper focus than the type of remembrance mentioned just in the last little section we just looked at a few minutes ago. You get the idea? It's just taking, you could say, taking the same thing further. You okay? Krida, Krida, Krida means activity. Yeah. Krida Dhyanam, meditation on Krishna's activities, and Seva Dhyanam, meditation on service to him. All right, so now, let's see. In the second paragraph, there's a verse from the Nishinga Purana, and it's all about meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. Means meditation on the form of the Lord. Yeah. Then, paragraph 3, it says quite clearly, in the Vishnu Dharma, there's a statement about meditation on the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Yeah, people who do that become so cleansed, they're able to enter into the kingdom of God. And then it's actually, in fact, it's interesting. It's really interesting. The whole of the rest of this section, which is it's about 4 or 5 or something paragraphs. It's quite a bit. It's 6 paragraphs. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it's 6 paragraphs is all about, it's simply focusing on meditating on serving the Lord. And it is simply one story. It's a long story of one devotee. It's a famous story. I imagine many of you, maybe all of you, are familiar with the story. This devotee where is he from? It's from South India, Pratishtanapur. There was once a very poor Brahmin. We'll just paraphrase the story. Very poor. And but he was such a devotee, and he really wanted to serve the deity and have his own deities at home and really serve them so nicely. But he was so poor, he couldn't do it, couldn't do anything. He could barely stay alive, let alone do some, really very beautiful deity worship. So one day he went to the ISKCON temple in Pratishtanapur in South India. Well, anyway, maybe you didn't catch that. Yeah, he went to a temple. And there, a devotee was giving a class, and he sat and he listened to the class. And the devotee said, devotional service is absolute. So therefore, ultimately, there's no difference between doing devotional service in practical terms and just thinking about doing it. They're the same, because it's absolute, non-different. One aspect is non-different from another aspect. like Krishna's name and his body. Krishna's absolute, so his name and his body, they're the same. So to do service, because service is absolute, to serve Krishna or to think of serving Krishna, same. So this devotee, Brahmin, he got really inspired by this. And he went home and he started this big program of simply thinking about doing deity worship. First of all, he thought of a big, beautiful temple, magnificent temple. And then he thought of having the most beautiful deities with just the most beautiful clothes and ornaments and jewelry and garlands and just temple program, kirtan and festivals and just everything, just in the most extraordinarily beautiful and wonderful ways. And he would just spend the whole day. Well, he wouldn't exactly. In the morning, he would go down to the river Godavari, which was flowing near his place, and he'd bring water. But as he was doing that, he would, in his mind, he would think, I am bringing water from all the sacred rivers. Here I have Yamuna water, Ganges water, water from the Kaveri, and so on and so forth. And he wouldn't normally, if you do deity worship on the altar here, you would know that sometimes we take some water, and it's not even from the Godavari, it's from the tap, the Durban municipality, and we chant mantras over it and do some mudras, and then we understand that it's transformed into waters from all these sacred rivers. He didn't even chant the mantras. He just thought, here I am, I'm going here I am at the Yamuna, and like this. So he was going on, and the story here explains how for many years he was doing this program, and he was just so happy. He was ecstatic. So, but one day in his mind, because, along with everything else, of course, he was doing the most incredible bhoga offerings of foodstuffs to the deities and artis and just everything else. So one day in his mind, he prepared sweet rice for offering to the deity, but he prepared the sweet rice, but then before he offered it, he thought, wait a minute, I just finished cooking it. It may be too hot because, and Prabhupada notes there in the story, that sweet rice is such a preparation, you should take it cool. The cooler the better. The cooler the better. So he didn't want to offer hot sweet rice. So what he did, this devotee, in order to test it, he touched the pot that it was in. He touched the pot with his finger in his mind. But in his mind, it was still too hot. And the pot was hot, really hot. So when he touched the pot with his finger, in his meditation, in his mind, his finger got burnt. And he got a shock. It was really hot. And it was such an experience, such a shock. He came back out of his meditation, back to just normal external consciousness, and he looked at his actual finger on his hand, and his actual finger was burnt. And then he understood, this is real. This is real. So then, Prabhupada goes on, Rupa Goswami, they go on to explain how in Vaikuntha, the Supreme Lord was watching this. And when he saw the devotee get his finger burnt, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. So when the Lord saw the devotee get his finger burnt, the Lord smiled. And some of his associates, who was it? Some of his associates, Lakshmi, yes. Lakshmi and some of the goddesses of fortune, they became curious. Why are you smiling? Because he really smiled like, wow, that's great. And the Lord, Prabhupada says, the Lord, however, did not reply to their inquisitiveness, but instead, he immediately sent an airplane with some of his associates from Vaikuntha to bring that devotee Brahmin to Vaikuntha in his same body, back to Vaikuntha. And that's what happened. And Prabhupada says, when the Brahmin was thus present before the Lord and the goddesses of fortune, the Lord explained the whole story. So the Brahmin was then fortunate enough to get an eternal place in Vaikuntha in the association of the Lord and his Lakshmi. So thus, Prabhupada says right at the end, thus we can understand that things offered by the devotees, even in meditation, are accepted by the Lord, and they help one achieve the desired result. But a point which is not mentioned here, but elsewhere it's mentioned, and last thing I'll say, is that, like this devotee Brahmin, he was so totally poverty-stricken, he could not even physically do the simplest deity worship of all. He just couldn't do it. Therefore, he got into the whole program of meditation. But elsewhere, Prabhupada makes the point that if you have the facility to actually do the service, then you must do the service and not just make an excuse that, well, to do the service in the mind is the same, so therefore I won't bother physically doing the service. No, you must do the service. Yeah. So when we're raising funds, devotees, for building one of our temples, and the devotees come around to collect some money from you, all you wealthy devotees, then, and you ask, okay, how much do you want? And they tell you $10 million. Then don't say that, don't worry, in meditation, I will give you $20 million. No, you must contribute. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.